Power is a game of perception. Those who seem to wield it often do so only because others allow them to believe they are in control. Men, in particular, carry the deep-seated belief that they are the masters of their fate, the architects of their world, the ones making the decisions. They walk with the confidence of rulers, convinced that their choices are their own, their will unshaken. But what if this belief is an illusion? What if, with the right awareness, a woman could shape his direction without him ever realizing he was being led? The truth is, control is not always seized through force, it is often granted through subtle influence. A woman who understands how a man's mind works does not need to challenge him directly. She does not need to demand power or struggle for dominance. Instead, she allows him to hold on to his illusion of control while gently steering him toward the outcome she desires. She plants ideas like seeds, letting them take root in his mind until he believes they are his own. She presents options in a way that makes him feel he is choosing freely, when in reality his choices were carefully framed from the beginning. The genius of this strategy lies in its invisibility. The moment a man realizes he is being controlled, he resists. His ego will not allow him to admit that his independence is compromised. But when a woman works with patience, when she studies his desires, his fears, and his blind spots, she can shape his world while letting him believe he is shaping it himself. She understands that the loudest power is often the weakest. Real influence whispers rather than shouts. It is in the way she asks questions instead of making demands, the way she encourages rather than commands, the way she introduces ideas subtly rather than pushing them aggressively. A man's need to feel in control blinds him to the ways in which he is being guided. If she plays the game well, he will go to war for her, thinking it was his idea all along. He will protect her, fight for her, and dedicate himself to her vision, all while believing he is simply acting on his own instincts. The greatest power does not come from direct confrontation. It comes from understanding the mind of another so deeply that you never have to fight at all. Applause is the fuel of men. They chase achievements, wealth, status, not always for the thing itself, but for the recognition that comes with it. From childhood, they are conditioned to seek approval, to prove themselves worthy in the eyes of others. Whether it is from their fathers, their mentors, their peers, or the women they desire, men are in constant pursuit of validation, and yet they will never admit it. They will tell you they do what they do for themselves, that they are unmoved by the opinions of others. But if you observe closely, you will see the truth. Praise lifts them, criticism weakens them, and indifference unsettles them the most. This need is a weakness, but only to those who understand how to use it. A woman who recognizes a man's hunger for validation can shape his actions without force. If she gives him too much, he becomes complacent, taking it for granted. If she withholds it entirely, he may seek it elsewhere. But if she controls the rhythm, offering it at just the right moments and withdrawing it when necessary, she can create in him a desire to earn it, to prove himself worthy of her admiration. A man who feels constantly validated loses his drive. He no longer feels the need to improve, to impress, to strive for more. But a man who senses that approval must be won will continue to push forward. He will seek ways to gain that recognition, to prove himself again and again. This is not manipulation, it is understanding the natural currents of human psychology. The key is in balance. Give too much validation and he loses his edge. Give too little and he turns cold. But if you master the art of timing, of making him wonder where he stands, of allowing him to taste but never fully consume your approval, you will remain the force that drives him. Men live for admiration, they build empires for it, they fight wars for it, they make and break themselves over it, and yet they rarely stop to ask themselves why. A woman who sees this truth does not need to demand devotion, she merely becomes the source of the validation he craves. And in doing so, she holds the reins without ever needing to pull them. A man's pride is his greatest armor and his greatest weakness. He walks through life guarding it, feeding it, shaping it into the image he wants the world to see. But beneath this carefully constructed facade lies something fragile, something easily wounded. A single word can inflate his confidence or shatter it. He may wear power like a suit of armor, but his ego is paper thin. The key to influence is understanding just how deeply men depend on this delicate sense of self. Praise him and he will glow with strength. Challenge his worth and he will fight to prove himself. A woman who knows when to build him up and when to let him falter holds a silent power over him. She does not need to confront him directly. She merely needs to understand the buttons to press. Too much flattery, and he will take her for granted. Too little, and he will resent her. The secret is in the balance, in the push and pull that keeps him striving for her approval. A man will do anything to protect his ego, but the woman who understands it controls not only his emotions, but the very course of his actions. Power is an addiction, and men fear withdrawal more than anything else. No matter how strong, wealthy, or successful they appear, there is always a lingering dread beneath the surface, the fear that it could all be taken away. This fear does not always manifest in words, but it reveals itself in their actions. It is why they dominate, why they assert themselves, why they push to maintain control. They are not only chasing power, they are running from the terror of losing it. A woman who understands this fear does not need to overpower a man. She only needs to recognize the moments when his insecurity rises, when he feels his influence slipping, when he doubts his position, when he senses a challenge to his authority. His mind becomes clouded. A well-timed word, a carefully placed silence, or even a subtle withdrawal of attention can make him desperate to re-establish his dominance. And in that desperation, he becomes predictable, reactive, and easy to guide. The man who fears losing power is already controlled by it. He will do whatever it takes to secure his position. A woman who can read this fear and use it wisely will never need to demand anything. He will offer it willingly. Men are hunters by nature, drawn to the thrill of the chase, the exhilaration of pursuit. Whether in war, business, or love, they crave the feeling of conquering something just beyond their reach. The moment a prize is fully secured, the excitement begins to fade. What once seemed irresistible becomes ordinary, and the restless desire for the next challenge begins to stir. This is not a flaw, it is an instinct, a deeply ingrained drive that has shaped their ambitions for centuries. A woman who understands this does not allow herself to become predictable. She knows that once she is too available, too easily won, the dynamic shifts. The power of intrigue is in scarcity, in remaining just slightly beyond full grasp. She does not play childish games or create unnecessary distance, but she understands the power of mystery, of subtle unpredictability. She keeps him on edge, always wondering, always striving, always feeling the chase is not yet over. The greatest mistake is to believe that once a man has committed, the pursuit is finished. The chase never truly ends. It only changes form. A woman who keeps this truth alive will never be abandoned, for she will always remain a challenge worth pursuing. No man is truly self-made. Though they build empires, lead armies, and shape the world, there is always an unseen force behind them, one they rarely acknowledge but deeply depend on. From the moment they take their first steps, they are guided by women, mothers, sisters, lovers, wives. They may act as if they stand alone, but in reality they are shaped by the presence, wisdom, and influence of the women around them. This dependence is both their strength and their vulnerability. A man who believes he is entirely independent is blind to how much he is influenced. A woman who understands this truth does not need to control him directly. She only needs to recognize the role she already plays. He seeks comfort in her presence, reassurance in her words, and direction in her approval. The more he trusts her, the more he leans on her, often without realizing it. A wise woman does not force influence, she allows it to happen naturally. She becomes his source of clarity, his refuge from the world, the one voice he cannot ignore. And when a man depends on a woman without knowing it, she holds far more power than he will ever admit. Logic, strategy, and discipline, these are the qualities men pride themselves on. They believe they are rational, immune to distraction, always in control of their decisions. But there is one force that overrides even the sharpest mind, one weakness that turns kings into fools, warriors into servants, and wise men into reckless gamblers: desire. Lust is not just a momentary impulse, it is a force that clouds judgment, distorts priorities, and makes a man believe he is acting by choice when, in reality, he is being led by something far deeper. Throughout history, men have risked their reputations, fortunes, and even their lives in pursuit of the object of their desire. They abandon reason for the mere promise of passion, and yet, they never see it as a weakness. They see it as their right, their conquest, their instinct. A woman who understands this does not wield it carelessly. She does not rely on superficial seduction, but instead recognizes the power of anticipation, of distance, of making herself desirable without ever being too easily possessed. The greatest mistake is to be the fleeting indulgence. The real power lies in becoming the obsession, the distraction, the one desire that lingers long after the moment has passed. A man can charge into battle, stand firm in the face of danger, and endure the harshest trials without flinching. He is trained to be strong, to suppress pain, to never show weakness. But there is one battlefield where even the bravest hesitate: his own emotions. The world teaches men to be invulnerable, to mask their fears, to never expose the softer parts of themselves. Yet, beneath the surface, they long for a place where they can let their guard down. This is a paradox. Men fear emotional vulnerability, yet they crave it. They want to be understood, but hesitate to reveal too much. They need comfort, but are terrified of appearing weak. A woman who recognizes this delicate balance holds something rare: his trust. If she creates a space where he feels safe enough to express himself, yet never so exposed that he feels powerless, she becomes irreplaceable. But there is a danger in giving too much. If he believes she will always be there, always listening, always available, he may lose the fear of losing her. The key is in presence without complete surrender, in being his refuge while still remaining a mystery. A man will protect his emotions at all costs, except with the one who understands them better than he does. A man does not measure himself in isolation, he measures himself against other men. His worth is not just in what he has, but in how much more he has compared to those around him. He watches, he competes, he ranks himself in a silent hierarchy that governs his confidence, his ambition, and his sense of identity. This comparison is his fuel, but it is also his greatest insecurity. No matter how powerful he becomes, there will always be another man richer, stronger, more admired, more feared. And that thought never truly leaves his mind. A woman who understands this does not need to challenge a man directly. She only needs to remind him, subtly, of the competition he already feels. A well-placed compliment about another man's ambition, a casual mention of someone else's accomplishments, can ignite a fire in him, not out of jealousy, but out of an innate desire to prove himself, to rise above, to be seen as the best. But this power must be used carefully. If he feels he can never measure up, he may withdraw. If he believes he is already unmatched, he may grow complacent. The key is in the balance, stoking his drive without ever letting him feel entirely secure. A man may chase wealth, power, and glory, but beneath it all he craves something far more fundamental: the feeling of being needed. He wants to believe that without him the world would be incomplete, that his presence holds value beyond what he owns or achieves. It is not just love he desires, but purpose. Without it, even the strongest man feels adrift, questioning his worth in silence. A woman who understands this does not beg for his attention, nor does she become entirely self-sufficient to the point where he feels unnecessary. Instead, she finds the perfect balance, showing him that he adds value to her life while making it clear that she would survive without him. This creates a paradox that keeps him engaged: the fear of losing his significance and the constant need to prove his place. If a man feels truly needed, he will move mountains. He will protect, provide, and fight for what he believes is his role. But if he ever suspects he is replaceable, his heart will begin to drift. The secret is not in dependence, but in the illusion of it, making him feel essential while ensuring he always works to earn that place.